Do you agree with what the president did today?
Well, look, I think most Americans are willing to give this president some latitude to get the best kind of trade deals that benefit the United States. I have concerns about tariffs in general. I'm a free trade kind of guy. And our district that I get the privilege of representing is one of the top manufacturing districts in the country. We're also sort of the start of the ag belt as it moves across the Midwest. So I understand the importance of this. But the folks I talk to in our district, while concerned, also understand that this president's had a good first year and a half, and they're willing to give some flexibility to him to negotiate better deals for our country.
And that seems only reasonable, as you would be. But let me ask how much flexibility you're willing to give him, because I'm going to put up some numbers here. You're from the home state of Ohio. In Ohio, this is steel and aluminum now, not involving the China tariffs right now. It's estimated that you'll gain about 2,800 jobs from these tariffs, but you'll lose 18,500. So that's a net loss of almost 16,000 jobs. How much does that concern you as you go into midterms?
Well, of course it concerns me, and we don't want any job loss, but that's not the case right now. The economy is growing. Unemployment's at its lowest in 20 years. The tax cuts have had a huge impact on economic growth. So all those are positive. And I think the president just said last week in Quebec at the G7 that his goal is no tariffs. No tariffs anywhere. But that's not the case right now. So that's the objective. That's what I would prefer. No tariffs on American products going overseas. So that's where we got to try to get to. The president said that's his goal. Let's see how this shakes out. But am I concerned? Yes, I think everyone is who comes from our part of the world in West Central and North Central Ohio. We have some great companies headquartered in our district, like Honda of America, who have a global supply chain. They're nervous, but let's see how this all shakes out.
Yeah, I just happened to look it up. You've got about 14,000 employees for Honda, actually, and it's down. And by the way, your number one employer is Walmart with 50,000 in the state. It's down. The stock's down quite a bit today.
That's probably the case in a lot of states.
Yeah, exactly the case. And so we heard actually yesterday from Gary Cohn, the former chief economic advisor to President Trump, who said that he was concerned that the tariff action would take away what you all accomplished from the tax cuts. I know you were a staunch supporter of that. Are you concerned that you could take it back with one hand what you'd given with the other?
Well, if this turns into a long and protracted debate and discussion, then I think there are real concerns. Let's hope that's not going to be the case. I spoke with Mr. Kudlow just a few weeks ago. Of course, we wish him the best recovery from his heart attack that took place. But I spoke with Larry a few weeks ago. He seemed to be optimistic that we were going to get this resolved in a positive fashion for the American people and for our economy. So I think we got to wait and see. And let's hope this works out in the way that it should. And
the question, I guess, is how much time do we have and how much time do you have? I mean, we heard from China right away they're going to come back with tariffs on the equivalent of $50 billion. And then there were reports today that, in fact, the Commerce Department now is preparing another $100 billion.
But that's the point. They already have tariffs. Right? This idea they're going to put tariffs on our goods. They already had tariffs on our goods that we were sitting over there, and I think that's part of the president's message as well. We want all that to go away so we can have... Trade is the opportunity for Americans to have jobs in this great country because they can market and sell their goods in markets all over the world. We want that to happen. There were already barriers to that taking place. We want to get rid of them, and the goal should be exactly what the president said last week in Quebec when he said, get rid of all tariffs.
Absolutely, and most people around the world would agree with you that China is not an open trading society. No question about they've had tariffs. That's right, but please understand, they're now saying they're going to put another set of tariffs on another $50 billion. And then we say we're going to do $100 billion on top of that. Doesn't this really turn into potlatch?
Well, I'm concerned about that. This escalation, I mean, that's the classic, that's a trade war. We don't want that. I don't think the President of the United States wants that. We're trying to avoid that. But at the same time, we're trying to get better agreements, better NAFTA agreement, better agreements. We're trying to put a focus on China, who is the biggest offender. I think the President has the right goals in mind. Let's just make sure we get this done as quickly as possible and done in a way that benefits the American people.
Well, exactly. And as you say, most people, including the Europeans, including the Canadians, including the Mexicans, would say China is a real issue. We had to deal with it, and particularly with respect to intellectual property, which is what this is about. But therefore, you referred to Quebec last week. Was that a step in the right direction? Because it seems like to me, like we're fighting with our friends when we all should be getting together with respect to China.
When the aluminum and steel tariffs first went on back in the spring, I signed a letter to the president. A number of us in Congress did, saying, focus a targeted approach, focus on the real offender here, China. So I am for doing that. I understand it's expanded some from there. But I think we got to wait and see how this shakes out. What I do know is right now, tax cuts have been helpful. The economy is growing. Unemployment's at its lowest in 20 years. That's a pretty good, and it's been a pretty darn good first year and a half for this president when you think about all the promises he's made, all the promises he's kept, and where the country's now at.
No question. I don't think anybody can quibble with that the economy is doing well, employment is doing really well. But some of the promises he made were actually to really go after not just China, but NAFTA and the Europeans and things. He's delivering on those promises as well.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah. So as you look forward to the midterms, how big a factor will trade be in your judgment?
I mean, we'll have to see. I think we're going to win. I think we're going to maintain the control of the House, even though I know typically the first midterm election in a new administration is a difficult time politically. But I think we're going to win. Again, and I come back to taxes have been cut, the economy's growing, unemployment's low, we're out of the Iran deal, the two Koreas have met, the president just had this amazing summit, the embassy's in Jerusalem, all those things, Gorsuch is on the court, all those promises made, promises kept. I think that's a pretty good environment to run for re-election, and we'll see what the impact of trade policy is as we move into those midterms.
Yeah, and finally, as you go back, Congressman, to your district and talk to your constituents on the weekends, is that what you're hearing?
Yeah, I hear positive things, but I'll be honest, I also hear from some of our big manufacturers, I hear some people in the agriculture sector who are concerned, like I'm concerned, about these trade policies. But I think it's too early to tell. I've also heard from employers who say, you know what, I'm so fed up with the abuse from China in trade policy, I'm willing to give the president some latitude to negotiate better deals. Even though it might hurt some in the short term, they think it's worth it in the long term. So I hear both of those issues, or both of those concerns when I talk with our constituents.